Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, get ready because we're exploring a market you might not have thought much about.
That's right. It's the global children watch chain market.
And the source material we're looking at suggests it's, well, ticking forward pretty fast.
Exactly. The research gives us a really surprising window into how global consumer priorities might be shifting, especially for kids' accessories.
So our mission here is to unpack this research. We want to pull out the key insights for you, the numbers, the growth story, and, the why behind it all.
Across different regions, different countries.
Purely based on the source material, of course.
And I think you might find the scale and especially the speed of this growth pretty unexpected. The data reveals quite a bit.
Okay, let's dive in then. First up, the big picture. This market, children's watch chains, it sounds niche, but the source puts its global value at $145.17 million back in 2021.
Yeah, $145.17 million. And that's really just the starting point.
Right, because the projections show some pretty rapid growth.
They really do.
Yeah.
It's expected to hit $196.2 million by 2025. And then it accelerates quite significantly, reaching a pretty remarkable $358.39 million by 2033.
Wow. So nearly 2.5 times bigger in just over a decade. That's significant.
It is. And the source gives us the compound annual growth rate, CAGR.
Which is 7.822%.
Exactly. And what's interesting, as the report emphasizes, is that this isn't just steady linear growth.
No.
It's actually accelerating over that forecast period. It's picking up speed.
Which suggests the things driving it are becoming, well, more common or more important globally.
That seems to be the implication. Which brings us neatly to the why.
Right. What forces are behind this acceleration?
Well, the source draws a direct line between this market growth and the wider trend of increased adoption of children's wearable accessories in general.
Well, that makes sense.
And the research digs into the motivations. It identifies 3 main drivers for this global consumer shift.
Which are?
Primarily, safety, education, and fashion.
Ah, okay. So it's much more than just a little chain to hold a watch. It's about function, too.
Exactly. Could be safety features like tracking, maybe educational elements, or simply how it fits into kids' fashion, which changes so fast.
So a blend of practicality and style driven by parents' priorities.
Precisely. Now let's zoom in a bit. Where is this growth actually happening around the world? The source gives a really detailed regional breakdown.
And one region really jumps out, doesn't it?
It does. Asia Pacific, the report flags it as the real powerhouse.
Yeah, it mentions the highest regional CGR is there at 8.355%.
That region alone is a huge slice of the market. It goes from $65.47 million in 2021
Okay.
up to a projected $171.31 million by 2033. That's massive.
And within Asia Pacific.
China is the clear volume leader, expected to cross $50 million, specifically $50.45 million by 2033.
But interestingly, the report also singles out India.
It does. It says India has the highest regional CGR within Asia Pacific at an impressive 9.33%,
Wow.
projecting its market size to hit $23.64 million by 2033.
So why do you think, based on those drivers the source mentioned, safety, education, fashion, why would India have such a high growth rate, even if China have the larger volume?
Well, the source doesn't explicitly say driver X is stronger in India than China, but you can infer, right? It suggests that in rapidly developing economies like India, with large populations, rising incomes, and maybe a growing awareness around child safety tech and educational gadgets, that combination fuels faster percentage growth.
That makes sense. A faster catch-up or adoption rate, maybe?
Possibly. And it's not just China and India. The source also points to significant contributions expected by 2033 from Japan, that's $26.83 million, and South Korea at $16.26 million.
Okay.
Plus, it mentions fast movers across Southeast Asia. That whole area is projected at $14.27 million by 2033.
Any specific countries called out there?
Yes, Singapore, $5.23 million by 2033, and Taiwan, $7.17 million by 2033, are noted as notable contributors within that Southeast Asia figure. And Australia is mentioned too, $7.18 million by 2033.
Okay, quite a dynamic picture in Asia Pacific. Let's shift focus. What about North America?
Still a very significant piece of the global market. North America is forecast to grow from $29.47 million in 2021
Right.
to $67.2 million by 2033.
And the U.S. leads there, I assume.
Oh, absolutely. The United States is the dominant player, expected to reach $54.3 million by 2033.
And its neighbors, Canada and Mexico.
They're showing solid growth, too, adding to that regional total. Canada's projected at $7.29 million by 2033, and Mexico at $5.61 million, so consistent uptake across the continent.
Okay, good to know. Now let's cross the Atlantic to Europe.
Europe also represents a substantial market. It's climbing from $28.6 million back in 2021 to a projected $66.3 million by 2033. Pretty similar in total size to North America by then.
Interesting. Who's leading the charge in Europe?
The source highlights Germany. It notes a surge there, projecting it to lead the European market at $14.59 million by 2033.
And the UK, always a key market.
Yes, the UK is also a strong contributor, projected to reach $9.99 million by 2033. And the report also talks about robust momentum in other major economies. Think France, projected at $7.03 million by 2033, Italy at $6.91 million, and Spain at $5.29 million. So several countries making significant contributions.
What about other parts of Europe, Russia, Scandinavia, etc.?
Yeah, the source covers those too. Russia has a lower KGR compared to Western Europe, but still grows projected at $2.42 million by 2033.
Okay.
And then you have several others adding up. By 2033, Luxembourg's small but growing at $0.37 million. Sweden hits $4.2 million. Denmark,
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
$7 million. Sweden hits $4.2 million. Denmark, $2.1 million. Switzerland, $3.35 million.
About widespread.
Exactly. And the rest of Europe category, which includes places like Austria, Belgium, Poland, that adds another $10.05 million collectively by 2033. So broad growth.
Got it. Moving south now, what's the picture in South America?
South America shows a positive regional uptake as well. The market there is projected to grow from $8.56 million in 2021 to $21.94 million by 2033.
And the key countries?
Brazil leads the region quite clearly, expected to be an $8.34 million market by 2033. But there are also significant contributions projected from Argentina, $3.88 million, Colombia, $3.01 million, Peru, $1.72 million, and Chile, $2.09 million.
And the rest?
The rest of South America, countries like Ecuador, Uruguay, adds another $2.91 million by 2053. So again, growth across the board.
Okay. How about the Middle East?
The Middle East market is also expanding steadily, from $6.97 million in 2021, projected to reach $17.62 million by 2033.
Who are the main players there?
Saudi Arabia is the largest market in this region, projected at $5.04 million by 2033.
Okay.
Followed fairly closely by Turkey at $3.67 million. And the UAE at $3.04 million.
And the others mentioned?
Yes, several others contribute. Qatar is projected at $1.67 million, and the rest of the Middle East, think Oman, Kuwait, Jordan, adds another $1.99 million by 2033.
All right, finally, let's look at Africa.
Africa shows steady momentum, according to the source. The market there is forecast to grow from $6.1 million in 2021 to $14.02 million by 2033.
And the source mentions this is happening despite some challenges.
Yes, it specifically notes this growth is occurring despite some acknowledged infrastructure gaps in parts of the continent.
Interesting. And within Africa?
South Africa is the clear leader, expected to reach $5.55 million by 2033.
Okay.
Nigeria is also highlighted as a significant market, projected at $1.79 million by 2033.
And the rest of the continent?
The rest of Africa category is actually quite substantial collectively, making up over $6.67 million to be exact by 2033. The source mentions countries like Kenya, Ghana, and Morocco as being part of this group, showing broad, even if somewhat uneven, adoption across the continent.
Okay, so we've toured the globe with these numbers. Now, here's where I think it gets really interesting. When you step back from all these individual figures, and you look across these incredibly diverse regions, high growth Asia Pacific, established North America and Europe, the developing markets elsewhere, the source seems to show a common thread.
Absolutely. It keeps looping back to those core drivers we talked about earlier.
Safety, education, fashion.
Exactly. That increasing global consumer focus on integrating those elements into products designed for kids, it seems to be a worldwide trend.
And the source uses some examples that really drive this home, making it relatable regardless of location.
Right. Like maybe a GPS-enabled watch chain being key for safety-conscious parents in New York. While perhaps a cartoon-themed design driven purely by fashion trends is big in Tokyo. Or maybe an eco-friendly material is the selling point in Berlin.
So the specific product might look different, the emphasis might shift.
But the underlying desires, safety, learning, style, are driving this market expansion across all these different economies and cultures. That's what the source emphasizes.
And that consistent growth trajectory we saw at 2021, then 2025, and that big jump by 2033, it really hammers home that this isn't slowing down.
No, if anything, the data suggests it's speeding up.
Okay, so let's try and recap this deep dive based purely on the source material we've discussed. We've uncovered a market, children's watch chains, that's, well, surprisingly significant and experiencing accelerating global growth.
And this growth seems fueled by a worldwide shift in what consumers, likely parents, prioritize: safety features, educational potential, and fashion appeal in kids' wearables.
And while Asia-Pacific is really leading the pack in terms of growth rate and eventual size,
Every major region is contributing to this upward trend. Each has its own key country players and specific market dynamics, but the direction is consistently up.
so as the source concludes, this market isn't just ticking along steadily.
No, it's genuinely accelerating. The pace is picking up.
Right. So here's a final thought, something for you, our listener, to consider, drawing only from what this research has told us.
Okay.
Given those core drivers, safety, education, fashion, and the different growth patterns and maybe income levels we see across regions, how might those priorities lead to really different types of children's watch chains becoming popular? Think about India compared to Germany, for example.
Or the U.S. versus South Africa. What features become paramount where?
Exactly. It seems like it's a market driven by global trends.
But definitely shaped by local needs, local priorities, maybe even local regulations down the line.
Definitely food for thought. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Welcome everyone to the deep dive. Today, get ready, because we're plunging into a market you might not think about much: children's watch chains.
Yeah, it sounds pretty simple on the surface, doesn't it? Like just a strap for a kid's watch. But when you actually dig into the sources we've been looking at, market reports, trend analyses, it turns out there's this, well, surprisingly dynamic transformation happening.
Absolutely. And that's our mission for this deep dive, to sort of unpack what's really driving this market. What are the challenges? What are the trends shaping it all? We want to give you the inside track because honestly, it's way more than just a simple accessory. We're talking safety, style, gifting, even technology playing a part.
It really is. It's become this fascinating reflection of shifting consumer tastes and also how retail itself is changing.
Okay, so let's get into it. The first big takeaway from the material is just how much this market is evolving. It's definitely not standing still. And there seem to be a couple of major forces behind that. What's the first one that jumped out at you?
Well, a really primary driver is this growing desire among parents for accessories that aren't just, functional. They have to be fashionable too, appealing to the kids themselves.
Right, so we're moving beyond just a plain band. These are becoming like mini fashion statements for kids.
Exactly. Think vivid cartoon themes, pop culture icons. The sources mention things like bright red Spider-Man chains, pink unicorn chains.
Ah, I saw that. And even personalization, right? Like getting a kid's name engraved.
Precisely. Which, makes them super popular as birthday gifts or for that back-to-school shopping season.
Yeah, it turns a practical item into something kind of special, something the kid actually wants.
Yeah, which obviously appeals to the parents buying them.
Okay, so fashion's one angle.
Yeah.
But building on the function part, this is where I thought it got really interesting. The second big driver seems to be all about safety innovations. Especially, it seems, linked to the rise of smartwatches for children.
Oh, definitely. This is huge. For parents investing in a smartwatch, the strap or chain, it's not just decorative, it's about security, keeping track of the device and, by extension, the child. The sources point to features you wouldn't normally think of for a basic watch strap, things like breakaway clasps.
So if it gets caught on something, it releases safely.
Exactly. And special loops designed specifically to hold a GPS unit securely. Even anti-loss features built into the chain itself.
And the why here is pretty clear. It boosts the child's safety and makes the smartwatch itself more practical, more usable day to day.
Right. And this is especially valued, the sources say, in cities or, semi-urban areas where those watches are doing double-duty communication and tracking. A secure chain is key.
Okay, so we have these drivers changing the product itself, but how are people actually getting these things? How has market access evolved?
That's another big piece of the puzzle. Access has really been blown wide open by, organized retail, but maybe even more so by e-commerce.
So a parent living somewhere maybe less central, like a tier 2 city, who didn't have many options before.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
Like a tier 2 city, who didn't have many options before. Now they can just go online.
Yep. Browse thousands of options on platforms like Amazon, Firstcry, Flipkart, those were mentioned.
And they can filter too, presumably, by age, material, maybe even the specific cartoon character.
Exactly. They're using filters for age group, what it's made of, character preferences, all that stuff. And like with everything else online, they're often swayed by, customer reviews or influencer recommendations.
Makes sense. But it's not all online, is it? Physical stores still play a role.
They do. They're adapting, strategically stocking these chains, especially around peak times like back-to-school sales or Children's Day, sometimes setting up displays right in school corridors or malls, just increasing that visibility at the point of purchase.
So getting it seen is still important.
Definitely. But it's not all growth and easy sales. This market definitely faces some significant hurdles.
Okay, let's talk challenges. What's the most obvious one, maybe?
Well, just the basic fact that kids are, kids. They're tough on their belongings, so these accessories tend to have a pretty short lifespan.
Right. Rough use, broken chains, faded colors, clasps that just give up.
Yeah, all of that.
And that must make parents hesitant, right? Especially if they're looking at a more expensive premium chain. They'd want some assurance it's going to last.
Absolutely. The source material even gave an example. A mother buys a pricier steel-linked chain, maybe thinking it'll be tougher. If that rusts or snaps in just a few weeks.
Yeah, she's probably not buying another one like that.
Exactly. She'll likely go for something cheaper next time or maybe look for a different solution altogether.
Okay, so durability is a big one. What else?
Well, linked to that is the problem of just the sheer volume of really low-cost, often unregulated products flooding the market, often from unbranded sellers.
The quality issue. Probably made with substandard materials.
You got it. Things like cheap plastic, maybe synthetic dyes. And the problem isn't just that they break easily. They can actually be a health hazard.
Like skin irritation or allergies.
Precisely, which is a serious concern for parents.
And the knock-on effect for the market must be pretty bad. It damages consumer trust overall.
Totally. And it makes it really, really hard for the brands that are investing in quality materials and safety testing to justify their price points, especially in markets that are more price sensitive, like parts of Latin America or Africa, according to the sources.
Creates a real race to the bottom, potentially.
It can, yeah. And there's another challenge emerging, particularly in more developed regions.
Okay.
It's the trend towards smartwatches having integrated bands that aren't really meant to be swapped out.
So the strap is just built into the watch unit, like sleek silicone or maybe Velcro.
Exactly. With their own locking mechanisms, this basically reduces or even eliminates the need for a separate external watch chain.
And are specific brands doing this?
Yeah, the sources mention names like Garmin, Fitbit, even Huawei's kids lines are moving this way, phasing out detachable chains.
And where is this trend strongest?
Seems to be places like the US, Japan, Germany, developed markets where these newer smartwatch designs are catching on fastest. It's a direct threat to the standalone chain market there.
Wow, okay. So lots of challenges. Durability, low-cost competition, even potentially becoming obsolete in some segments due to integrated designs. But despite all that, there are still trends pushing the market forward. What's shaping the future here?
Well, one big continuing trend is the use of license collaborations, themed collections.
Ah, right. Like the Disney princesses, Marvel superheroes, Hello Kitty, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Those are huge, especially for seasonal pushes like back to school or holiday gifts.
And I think I saw something about limited edition lines tied to movie releases.
Yeah, that's a clever tactic. Creates that sense of urgency, get it before it's gone.
Smart. What else is trending?
Alongside the characters and themes, there's a very clear shift towards eco-conscious materials.
Okay, that makes sense given broader consumer trends. What kind of materials are we talking about?
Things like BPA-free plastics, hypoallergenic silicone, even biodegradable components are starting to appear.
And that taps right into what modern parents are looking for, doesn't it? Sustainability, kind of clean choices for their kids, even for something small like this.
Absolutely. And the sources suggest this is particularly strong in European countries and also in some progressive Asian markets like South Korea and Singapore.
Interesting. Any other major trends?
Yeah, one more that stood out is the growing use of product bundling strategies.
So packaging the watch chain with something else.
Exactly. Retailers and brands are bundling them with, say, a matching school bag, maybe the smartwatch itself, or even a lunchbox.
Trying to increase the perceived value.
Right, and drive bigger sales. It's especially common during those key periods, like when school starts or during festive seasons.
There was that specific example, wasn't there? A back-to-school combo with a watch the chain, and a themed water bottle.
Yep, that was it. The idea is to tempt parents into buying the whole set, boost sales across different categories.
So pulling this all together, it's clear this isn't just a simple market. It's this really dynamic intersection of practicality, design, safety, even emotion.
It really is. It's shaped by these big forces, demographic shifts, how we shop online now, parental anxieties about safety, demands for style, and of course, ongoing material innovations.
What a fascinating deep dive. It just goes to show how complex even seemingly simple product categories can be. How quickly they adapt to parent and child needs, technology shifts, and changing values like sustainability.
Yeah, it reveals all these layers from, making sure a tracking device stays put in a busy city to meeting global eco standards to just figuring out how to sell effectively online.
So here's a final thought for you to chew on. Given those challenges we talked about, the short life cycles, the competition from cheap stuff, and especially that rise of integrated watch bands, how might real innovation, maybe in materials or design, truly shake things up for kids' accessories? How could they balance durability, cost, and all these evolving trends like personalization and safety going forward? What does the next big thing in kids' accessories even look like?
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.